plain name.
I didn't think it polite to listen, sir.
I don't play accurately. Anyone can play accurately, but I play with wonderful expression. Aha, I see over the cucumber sandwiches cut, Lady Bracknell. Who can that be? So, oh.
Mr. Ernest Worthing.
How are you, dear Ernest? What brings you up to town?
Oh, pleasure, pleasure. Eating as usual, I see, Algy.
I believe it customary in society to take some slight refreshment at 5 o'clock.
Who's coming to tea?
Oh, merely Aunt Augusta and Gwendolyn.
How perfectly delightful.
I don't think Aunt Augusta will quite approve of you being here. The way you flirt with Gwendolyn is perfectly disgraceful. It's almost as bad as the way Gwendolyn flirts with you.
I am in love with Gwendolyn. I have come up to town expressly to propose to her.
And I thought you'd come up for pleasure. I call that business. But please do not touch the cucumber sandwiches. They're ordered specially for Aunt Augusta.
But you have been eating them all the time.
That is a different matter. She is my aunt. Right, have some bread and butter. The bread and butter is wonderful.
And very good bread and butter it is, too.
My dear fellow, you need not eat as if you're already married to her. You're not married to her, and I don't think you ever will be.
Why do you say that?
Well, in the first place, girls never marry the men they flirt with. And in the second place, I don't give my consent.
Your consent.
My dear fellow, Gwendolyn is my first cousin, and before I allow you to marry her, you must clear up the whole question of Cecily.
Cecily? I don't know anyone of the name Cecily.
Here is the cigarette case you left last time you dined here. And when I look at the inscription inside, I find that the thing isn't yours after all. This cigarette case was a present given to you by someone of the name of Cecily. And you said you didn't know anyone of that name.
Well, if you want to know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
But why does she call herself Little Cecily if she is your aunt? From Little Cecily, with her fondest love.
My dear fellow, some aunts are tall, some aunts are not tall. That is a decision. Surely an aunt may be allowed to decide for herself. For heaven's sake, give me back my cigarette case.
But why does your aunt call you her dear uncle? From Little Cecily, with her fondest love, to her dear Uncle Jack. Besides, your name isn't Jack, it's Ernest.
It isn't Ernest, it's Jack.
You've always said it was Ernest. You answer to the name of Ernest. You're the most earnest-looking person I ever saw. It's on your cards. Ah, here's one of them. Mr. Ernest Worthing, the Albany. I'll keep this as proof that your name is Ernest.
My name is Ernest in town, and Jack in the country. And this cigarette case was given to me in the country.
Yes, but it does not account for the fact that your small Aunt Cecily calls you her dear uncle. Come on, boy. You had much better have the thing out at once. I've always suspected you of being a secret bunburyist, and I'm quite sure of it now.
Bunburyist? What on earth do you mean by a bunburyist?
It's a bird.
Wait.
I'll reveal to you the incomparable expression as soon as you inform me why you are Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me when I was a little boy, made me in his will guardian to his granddaughter, Miss Cecily Cardew. Cecily, who addresses me as her uncle, lives in my place in the country, under the charge of her admiral governess who is prison.
Where is that place in the country, by the way?
That is nothing to you, dear boy. You are not going to be invited.
But why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
When one is placed in the position of guardian, one has to adopt a high moral tone. And as a high moral tone is hardly conducive to one's health or one's happiness. In order to get up to town, I have always pretended to have a younger brother of the name of Ernest, who lives in the Albany and gets the most dreadful scrapes. That, my dear Algy, is the whole truth, pure and simple.
The truth is rarely pure and never simple. What you really are is a bunnerist! You have invented a very useful younger brother by the name of Ernest, in order that you might come up to town as often as you like. I have invented an invaluable permanent invalid called Bunbury, in order that I may go down to the country whenever I choose. If it wasn't for Bunbury's extraordinary bad health, I wouldn't be able to dine with you tonight. I've really been engaged to Aunt Augusta for more than a week.
I haven't asked you to dine.
Oh, I know! You're absurdly careless about sending out invitations. Besides, now that I know you to be a confirmed Bunburyist, I naturally want to talk to you about Bunbury!
I am not a Bunburyist at all. If Gwendolyn accepts me, I'm going to kill my brother. Cecily is a little too much interested in him.
Ah, that must be Aunt Augusta. Now, if I get her out of the way for 10 minutes in order that you might have an opportunity of proposing to Gwendolyn, may I dine with you tonight?
Lady Bracknell and Miss Fairfax.
Good afternoon, dear Algernon. I hope you are behaving very well today.
I'm feeling well, Aunt Augusta.
That is not quite the same thing. In fact, the two things rarely go together.
Do you mean you are smart?
I am always smart. Am I not, Mr. Worthing?
You are quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
I'm sorry if you were a little late, Algernon. I was advised to call on dear Lady Harbour. I haven't been there since her poor husband's death. I never saw a woman so altered. She looks quite 20 years younger. And now, I'll have a cup of tea and one of those nice cucumber sandwiches you promised me.
Good heavens, Lane! Why are there no cucumber sandwiches?
There were no cucumbers in the market this morning, sir.
No cucumbers?
No, sir, not even for any money.
That will do, Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
It really makes no matter, Algernon. I had some profits with Lady Harbour, who seems to me to be entirely for pleasure now.
Yes, I hear her hair has turned quite cold from grief. Aunt Augusta, I shall have to give up the pleasure of dining with you tonight. I just received a telegram that my poor friend Bunbury is very ill again.
This Mr. Bunbury seems to suffer from curiously bad health.
Yes, poor Bunbury's a dreadful invalid.
Well, I think it is high time that this Mr. Bunbury made up his mind whether he was going to live or to die. This shilly-shallying with the question is absurd. I would be much obliged if you would ask Mr. Bunbury for me not to have a relapse on Saturday, for I rely on you to arrange my music for my last reception.
Yes, we will run over the program now, if you will kindly come into the next room with me for a moment.
Thank you, dear Algernon. Gwendolyn, you will accompany me.
Charming day to spend, Miss Fairfax.
Pray don't talk about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people talk about the weather, I feel quite certain that they mean something else.
I do mean something else.
I thought so. In fact, I'm never wrong.
Miss Fairfax, ever since I met you, I have admired you more than any other girl I have ever met since I met you.
I am quite aware of the fact. For me, you have always had an irresistible fascination. We live, as I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals. And my ideal has always been to love someone of the name of Ernest. The moment Algernon first mentioned he had a friend called Ernest, I knew I was destined to love him.
You mean to say you couldn't love me if my name wasn't Ernest?
It is a divine name. It produces vibrations.
I can think of lots nicer names. Jack, for instance, is a charming name.
Jack? It produces absolutely no vibrations. The only safe name is Ernest.
Gwendolyn, I must get christened at once. I mean, we must get married at once.
Married? But you haven't even proposed to me yet. And I think it only fair to tell you beforehand that I am fully determined to accept you.
Gwendolyn, will you marry me?
Of course, darling. How long you have been about it.
Mr. Worthing! Rise from the semi-recumbent posture. It is most indecorous.
Ma, Mr. Worthing has not quite finished yet.
Finished what, may I ask?
I am engaged to Mr. Worthing.
Pardon me, you are not engaged to anyone. When you do become engaged, I will inform you. And now, I have a few questions to put to you, Mr. Worthing. Gwendolyn, while I am making these inquiries, you will wait for me below in the carriage.
But, Mamma,
In the carriage, Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn! The carriage.
yes, Mamma.
You may have a seat, Mr. Worthing.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell. I prefer standing.
Do you smoke?
Yes, I must admit, I smoke.
I'm glad to hear it. A man should always have an occupation. Are your parents living?
I'm afraid I've lost both of my parents.
To lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, may be regarded as misfortune. To lose both looks like carelessness. Who was your father?
I'm afraid I really don't know. It'd be near to the truth to say my parents lost me. I was found.
Found?
Mr. Thomas Codger, an old gentleman of good charitable disposition, found me and gave me the name of Worthing because he had a first-class ticket for Worthing in his pocket at the time. Worthing is a place in Sussex. It is a seaside resort.
And where did this charitable gentleman who had a first-class ticket to the seaside resort find you?
In a handbag.
Handbag.
Yes, Lady Bracknell, I was in a handbag. A somewhat large black leather handbag with handles to it. An ordinary handbag, in fact.
And in what locality did this Mr. Thomas Cardew come across this ordinary handbag?
In the cloakroom at Victoria Station. It was given to him in mistake for his own.
The
Yes, the writing line.
Mr. Worthing, the line is immaterial. I must confess, I'm bewildered by what you have just told me. To be born on any great bread in a handbag, whether it had handles or not, seems to me to display a contempt for ordinary decencies.
May I ask you then, what would you advise me to do?
I would strongly advise you, Mr. Worthing, to try to acquire some relations.
I can produce the handbags any moment.
Sir, you can hardly imagine that I would allow my only daughter to marry into a cloakroom and form an alliance with a parcel? Good morning, Mr. Worthing.
Good morning. For heaven's sake, stop playing that ghastly tune, Algie!
Didn't it go off all right, old boy? You don't mean to say that Gwendolyn refused you?
Gwendolyn is as right as a trivet, but her mother's perfectly unbearable.
Did you tell her the truth about you being Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
By the end of the week, I shall have got rid of my brother. I will say he died in Paris of apoplexy.
Apoplexy is hereditary. You'd much better say a severe chill.
Very well then. My brother is carried off suddenly by a severe chill. That gets rid of him.
Didn't you say that Miss Cardew was a little too interested in him? Wouldn't she take his loss a good deal?
Cecily is not a silly romantic girl. She has a capital appetite, goes for long walks, and pays no attention to any of her lessons.
I'd rather like to see Cecily.
I take very good care you never do.
Miss Fairfax.
Algie, kindly turn your back. I have something very particular to say to Mr. Worthing.
My own darling.
Ernest, we may never be married. From the expression on Mamma's face, I fear we never shall. But although she may prevent us from becoming man and wife, and I may marry someone else, and very often, nothing can alter my eternal devotion to you. Your town address at the Albany I have, but what is your address in the country?
The Manor House. Wolves. Hertfordshire.
Manor House, Walton, Hertfordshire. I will communicate with you daily. Algie, you may turn around now.
I already have.
You may also ring the bell.
You will let me see you to your carriage, my own darling?
Certainly.
I will see Miss Fairfax out.
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow Lane, I'm going Bunburying. I shall probably not be back till Monday. Pack all the Bunbury suits.
Yes, sir.
The Manor House, Wilton, Hertfordshire.